For one last time, it's necessary to say, Aaron Hernandez does not deserve our sympathy. His connection to repeated violence says so. A recent trial for double homicide, of which he was acquitted, says so. His conviction of first-degree murder, garnering life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, says so. So who are any of us to say otherwise? But as we contemplate what life should have and would have been for Hernandez had he handled things differently, let's not lament his demise so much so that we forget the lessons to be learned from his death. And that part isn't as simple as watching the company you keep and avoiding trouble. Sometimes we need to emphasize how the temptation for success should be greater. Being fixated on rewards more so than complaining about what ails us should be the status quo. Sometimes it's about looking at life, the life you once had, reminiscing vividly about the struggles you endured to get to this point, and saying, there's no way in hell I'm ever going back to that place. From Allen Iverson to Shaq, from LeBron to Kevin Durant, from a Doug Williams to a Richard Sherman and thousands of players in between, everyone has their story. Most don't have happy endings. But when there are those, like the ones mentioned, who do have those stories, we got to take advantage of that. Who do articulate them candidly, we've got to take advantage of that. Think about the lives touched by that. Imagine the change it could provoke. If Josh Gordon was open about the millions of dollars he cost himself due to marijuana use, would that not have been an impact? What about Greg Hardy and what life's been like for him since his demise stemming from assault charges? Regardless of Sterling Marte's situation, yet another example of how players have prospered in spite of PED use. Hasn't anyone noticed that amphetamine and steroid use has been curtailed, at least somewhat, due to all the attention brought to it by Major League Baseball and Capitol Hill, as is the case involving domestic violence since that infamous Ray Rice video from a few years ago? The point is, there's something to be said for ramifications, for knowing there's usually a huge price to pay for one's transgressions. Constantly, and especially in the case of Aaron Hernandez, we think about incarceration. But if we stop there, we're missing something. Perhaps it's time to start thinking about lives lost in manners that don't involve jail cells. Life convictions can come in a variety of forms. Don't believe me? Just think about some of the names previously mentioned. Think about what they could have had they simply acted responsibly. And then how do you think their lives are right now? Got to ask yourself that question. Isn't that the real message we should all be committed to sending? I think so.